And we're live. What's good, everybody? Episode 37 of Catch and Counter. Thanks for tuning in with us this week. As always, on YouTube, Mondays at 3 p.m. EST, or if you're catching us out on the replay on Big Mouth Radio, we appreciate you guys too. Nibs, how we doing, brother?
I'm doing well, baby. You know, what's up, Big Mouth? What's up, YouTube? Welcome to everybody that's rocking with the Catch and Counter fellas. You know what I'm saying? Dakota, man, we got a lot to talk about this week, bro.
I know, and that for those of you who maybe aren't as much of like a diehard fan, you might be going, "Oh, there weren't any big cards." But if you're in the boxing world, there was some significant shit happening this weekend. Something we were literally just talking about before we went live, and said, "Yeah, you know what? Let's save it for the live." But Michaela Mayer winning her third title in a third weight division with a dominant decision over Mary Spencer at 154 pounds now. You know, when Michaela went pro, she was a featherweight, and she's moved up from featherweight now to junior middleweight, and has consistently, from my perspective, put on quality performances against quality competition. Even her losses, I think, are relatively easy to dispute, and she's shown what I would call the most, at least to me, one of the most valued qualities in a fighter, which is longevity. The fact that Michaela has been at this level now for almost a decade and continues to climb weight classes, beat champions, and take high quality opposition about as much as anybody in boxing. I mean, I just think the run she's on has been tremendous.
And this is where me and Dakota part ways. So, look, I am. How do I say this without being a complete dick? I am respectful of what Michaela Mayer means to the sport of women's boxing. Let me put it that way. I think not having her in the sport of women's boxing would be a detriment to the sport. However, as a pure boxing fan, I look at what she's done, and it's not as impressive to me. And the reason I say that is it's not out of hate. It's yes, she beats the women she should beat, and she beats them convincingly. The second she steps up and fights somebody that's on her level, physically, just naturally talented wise, she kind of withers a little bit, in my opinion. And I think, you know, that's been proven a couple of times. I think she's gotten some favorable
In
decisions.
which fights though, Nebs? Because she's her losses have been close. The Jonas fight has been very much disputed, as has the Baumgartner fight. Though that one I think was closer than the Jonas fight. But which performance?
I mean, to me, the Jonas fight was. I think she lost that clearly. I think she lost the Baumgartner fight clearly. There were, I think, if you're looking at who you would have rather have been at the end of both of those fights, it wasn't her. You know what I'm saying? Like the Baumgartner fight, I think, and people will say, "Oh, well, she was juicing." You know, Alicia was juicing. That got proven to be incorrect, even though everybody wanted to give her crap for that. It was she wasn't. But even at that, I mean, and on paper, Michaela should have ran through Alicia Baumgartner. She had all the advantages. You know what I mean? When you look at it
Yeah, but
on paper.
Alicia had knocked out Terry Harper. Alicia had some other quality wins. There was a reason that fight was on the same card as Shields and Savannah Marshall, because it carried its own buildup and its own excitement. Very much that Alicia at the time also brought to the table. I don't think in any way that there was like an A side to that fight. I think regardless of how you feel about the result of those fights, not everybody, even if you're fighting in weight classes where the competition is slim, not everybody moves up this much in weight and has success. There's really only a couple of fighters in women's boxing. Amanda Serrano's the other obvious one. Another obvious case of it not working was a couple years ago when Terry Harper moved up to this weight and had been having some success at junior welter and welter, I think, and fought Cecilia, who was an older fighter in her own right, but you could just see that when Harper would land, it didn't have the same impact as it did in her other fights, and that when Cecilia landed, that it was moving Harper physically. And even though personally, and I think a lot of people would agree that Harper had more in the tank and more ability, the fight wound up being a draw because weight classes matter. So when I see Michaela moving up yet another weight class and fighting, a woman of Spencer's caliber who is an Olympian, who is a champion at the weight she's at. That shit's impressive to me. I see I see Mikaela's fundamentals. Part of why she can keep such a high work rate and be in the pocket like that is that she has tremendous technique and fundamentals. Jesus M says next for mayor, unify. Well, let's talk about unification. I'm not 100% sure on who the other champions are currently at 154 pounds. But I do think that Mayer now moving up to this weight, like this high, it starts to open up conversations for different kinds of fights, even up as high as middleweight, where you have, fighters like Tam Tebow. There's some other, talented women up at the middleweight class right now. And then, it's still her having been to welterweight very recently, being a welterweight title holder, she could easily come back down and weight and fight a Katie Taylor, fight an Amanda Serrano, fight somebody at 140 should she want to. It seems like she has somebody with a lot of options right now.
I mean, look, is it impressive? Yeah, and as far as unifying the belts, if she does, that's impressive. I think that she definitely has the ability to do so. I just think that once she runs into somebody that's on her level, physically, I just don't think it's gonna look the same way. Like we look, and I know that I'm being extremely hypercritical, right?
Don't you
But
think Sandy Ryan's on her level though? And then to be more dominant in the second fight, and then to see how Sandy looked in her last fight, she looked fucking great. She was moving her head, slipping and sliding.
uh,
That's a 50-50 fight.
I think I think if I guess what I'm comparing it to is the women in the top of the division, and there are people that are saying that Mayer belongs there. I don't agree with that because when you look at the women at the top of the bill, they're way more dominant than she is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, okay, Amanda, in their last fights, but those are two of the best, period. Going at it, and mind you, Amanda's really like two or three down weight classes down from where she was fighting. So if you take that into consideration, but you look at Clarissa Shields, bro, she's at the heavyweight division now. She started off, at what, 150, 140. She started off at welterweight, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, before she started moving up rapidly. And now she's fighting girls, almost twice her size and looks way more impressive than she did, a couple weight classes ago. So I guess maybe, in comparison is where I'm going there. But I will say this again, anybody who gets a strap, anybody who wins in the sport of boxing, you have to applaud it
No,
because
but hold on. Now I got to push back, bro. So you're saying that because she hasn't had the same career or talent as Clarissa, that you're not impressed with her? I feel like that's a pretty high standard.
Shouldn't it be?
There's only
Right?
one. There's only one Clarissa Shields. You know what I mean? There's only one Katie Taylor. When we're
But
looking at
at the
Mikaela
time,
Mayer,
Floyd Mayweather was the man, right? There were people like, oh, well, he can be beat. He's not the best, but he was the standard, right? So we should want the people that are being claimed to be in the top 5, top 10.
I don't think that I was then comparing Winky Wright to Floyd though. I wasn't going, oh well, he didn't do what Floyd did, so I'm not really too impressed. That's my only point. I'm saying if every fighter is going to get compared to the best of their time, it's not really. It doesn't seem like a fair comparison to me.
I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is it's what we do. Like it happens, right? Like if you're going to claim to be one of the top dogs, guess what people are going to do? They're going to compare you to the other top dogs, right? Like it has to be love. It's all love and fair and love and war, right? Like if you're going to sit up here and tell me you belong in that conversation, then I'm going to compare you against the other people in the conversation. I'm not going to say, oh, well, let's just take what you did alone and then put you number one. Canelo was number one for a long time. Why? Because we could compare what he did to what everybody else was doing. Crawford, the reason he's climbed the list of the pound for pound, right, is because we can now compare the shit that he's done to everybody else. The Usyks, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. We do it for the men. Why not do it for the women? So if people are going to sit up here and tell me she's one of the best, I'm going to compare her to the best. And it doesn't compare. To me, it's apples and oranges. Now, with that being said, I still think she's a great fighter. I just don't think that she's one of the best. That's my opinion. And again, I understand it's being nitpicky,
So,
but
but
she
elaborate
is a
on that.
champion.
Define one of the best. Is she, and I wouldn't compare it to Clarissa's legacy or to Clarissa's you know level of accomplishment. But it's like we were doing this when we were doing pound for pound. Like I'm pretty comfortable saying she's a top 7 pound for pound fighter, and I think that it takes a special talent even to get to that level.
I mean, I would put her in at this point in the top 10. And I do think that she's at the bottom half of that 10, meaning 5 through 10. I don't think that she's or 6 through 10, I should say. I don't think she's in the top 5 in my opinion. I think there's a log jam at the top 5. Now you got some chicks that might end up retiring soon, because they've got some definitely mileage on them, towards in the top, and that could move her up. You know what I mean? But we'll see. That's another conversation for another day. But yeah, I mean, I'll give her. She's the bottom half of the top 10. But again, when you say out of your mouth, you say you're one of the goats. She said this. It's not like I'm making it up. So I'm going to compare you against, and it's not comparing legacies. Like Clarissa Shields' legacy is a whole different world, right? You can't.
Right. I wouldn't
You
make that comparison.
men, male or female, she's won 2 Olympic titles. She's all this stuff that she's done, all the accolades that she has, but she is the number one person in the field right now. So if somebody's going to say, "Hey, I'm one of the top dogs too," I have to compare you to that. It just is what it is. It might not be fair, but that's the way it works. Again, I've gotten off a little track a little bit, but I'm gonna tell you, is Mikaela Mayer a champion? Is she a great fighter? Yeah. Is she one of the best? Not in my opinion.
Well, we agree on the first part. We don't agree on the second part. That's what you get on this show, folks. 2 men who speak their minds. Shout out my guy Mankey Crazy coming over from the Saturday show with Lukey. I saw the Yoshito video. Good video. I appreciate you, my boy. Thank you for watching. And if you haven't gotten the chance, go check out the Fight Life with Mio Yoshida, which is out now on our YouTube channel. Put that out about 2 weeks ago. And very grateful for all the feedback that you guys have given me, man. The boxing fans.
By the way, you mentioned unification. What is she at? 154 now?
She's at 154, but yeah, it would be O'Shea. And then the other obvious one, I think at welterweight, is Lauren Price. I don't know
Lauren Price is nasty too, bro.
Lauren Price is nasty, and I would favor her in that fight. I think the problem for Lauren is she has some type of network promotional issue right now where whatever network she signed to isn't doing boxing. I don't actually really understand the full details of Lauren Price's situation, but I know that she's not fighting, and I know that there's a lot of people that are frustrated about it because she's one of the most talented fighters in boxing right now, I would say. And I think a fight with her and Mikaela would be really big.
I'm actually on the mindset that and this is usually weird because I'm usually flipping on this, but I think she has a better chance of unifying at the higher weight class at 154 than she does fighting. I mean, Lauren's a dog, bro.
Welterweight has more talent overall, I would say, right now.
Yeah, and this isn't a knock on O'Shea. I think O'Shea is great, what she's accomplished, but I definitely think in that particular matchup, I think Mikaela's got the edge there. A fight with her and Lauren, though, that would be peace. Now
I think that's a great fight, man.
Now, if she were to fight Lauren and beat Lauren convincingly, then we can have a whole different conversation, my guy.
Even if she wins a close fight, when you're fighting, that's where I give her the credit is the consistent level of competition that she's fighting. Where even if she's going 50-50 against the best fighter she's fighting, to me, just that she's consistently fighting the best possible opposition, I think, is an accomplishment in and of itself. I guess we can, while Nibs is stepping away, we can move forward to some of the other fights from this week. We had Josh Buatsi win. I mean, I know Nibs is gonna have some shit to say about this one, but Josh Buatsi winning a terrible decision against Zach Parker in a tough hang, bro. In a tough hang, a tough watch. And it's the double whammy. When you got a fight like that, that's a real stinker, and then they get the decision just violently wrong. It's a tough hang, man. I don't really even know what to make of this fight because I had pretty high opinions of both guys. Like neither of them I thought would ever be the top guy at light heavy, but Buatsi showed a lot of character against Callum Smith. I've been impressed with Zach Parker at times where he's a tall, long guy who moves well. He has a lot of ability, but it's just neither of them really delivered. And it seemed like Parker was just sort of the one that was able to make more happen out of a shitty situation. And Buatsi just kind of got caught watching.
Bro, this was an atrocity of judging. Look, and I'm a Buatsi fan. I'm with you on that. Like I wanted him to win this fight. He did not. In my mind, it wasn't close. Like,
did he win 3 rounds? Did he win 3 rounds?
No, I thought I gave him 2, and that was being nice. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think, like, even if you thought the fight was close, which relatively it was, the rounds weren't like these. You know what I mean? Like, it was clear who was winning the fight, even though it was a considerably close fight. The one judge that had it a draw. I mean, come on, maybe. That what's fucked up is that might be the best judging of this fight. For the 3 people involved, I think it was clear who won. But it's crazy because that we say this because when they were doing the fight live and they brought up the online judging from the fans, the online judging from the fans had it the same. Like they thought Buatsi was winning, and I was like, "What?" Like, I had the same response that the commentators had. I was like, "What are they watching? Like, this isn't close." And everybody there thought, he had lost by a wide margin. And then the fact that it was close, I said, "Oh, if it's close, he won."
Well, and I've seen sort of the take that like, oh, well, the fight stunk. So nobody's a winner. Who cares about the decision? And to me, it's just like, listen, sometimes you get a fucked up style matchup. And it doesn't mean like if one guy's just able to be more resourceful, just because the fight isn't good doesn't mean it doesn't matter who wins. You know what I mean?
Look, not every fight is going to
Nibs.
be look, oh my god, hey bro, I finally got up with you. Shout Town, give you love. That's right, Shout Town, baby. The Bears, we won.
Yes,
Thank you for coming through and showing some love. That's love right there. So in case anybody's missing that, let me go ahead. But anyway, we also have the better pizza, but that's another debate for another day. You know what? Look, bro, it's one of those things where in this fight, right? Not every fight is going to be Castillo Corrales. Not every fight is going to be, Gotti Ward. You know what I mean? They're going to have some fights that look like this, but that doesn't mean that they don't matter. You know what I mean? And I think it actually matters more to get the judging right in these fights than it does.
Right. Why should Buatsi be the one that gets rewarded for this shit fight?
And I'll be honest with you, it does matter because going into this, what they both only have one loss. These guys are both contenders, right? So who wins this fight matters. You know what I mean? Like the guy who loses is going to have to figure some shit out. So, me being a biggest fan, and I'm agreeing with
I got Bean on my side this week.
Wow, Beans. I see how it is, bro. You can be bought because you're not a Bears fan. I see how it is. That's all right. I'm used to people hating Chi-Town anyway. Still love you, Beans. But
I gotta tell you, bro, one thing that I found really weird about this fight was because Buatsi's fought a lot of guys at this point, right? He's been in with Callum Smith. He's been in with Craig. I'll think of his name, of course, in 10 minutes. But he's been fighting quality opposition in Britain. I would say even the elite level of British light heavyweight boxing. Olympics bronze medalist. There's been all this hype around him for the last 8 years or so since he went pro. And then he's fighting this fight, and I just see no identity, Nibs. I see no ability to find range. I don't see him asserting anything. I see him falling in. I see him getting held. And I see Parker unwilling to engage on the inside and landing the only clean, effective punches from the outside. But what do you make of Buatsi having been pro this long, having this much experience, being a capital C contender at this point, and just not having an identity in this fight?
I don't know if we can attribute it to a cliff, that he's fallen off of. Maybe just the wear and tear of the fights that he's been in.
He's had a lot of rough fights.
Or maybe it's just one of those things where guys get so comfortable in their routine that they stop looking to get better. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'd be speaking out of school. So my opinion though is it looks like it's time for Buatsi to start thinking about a different career, bro. It looks like he's starting to fall off a cliff, and I could be wrong. Maybe he just had a bad night at the office. But if his next fight out looks like this again, it might be time to start looking at a different career, my guy.
Mackey Crazy saying needs to leave Virgil Hunter. Other than inside game, what has Buatsi improved with Hunter? I mean, it's not a terrible point, to be honest. It may not even be that Virgil's not doing a good job training him, but to Nibs's point, sometimes you just get too comfortable doing what you're doing, and you've been doing things the same way for a long time. And to me, and by the way, it was Craig Richards. When I saw him win against Willie Hutchinson, and then a couple weeks ago we did our live stream, and we were both very impressed with how Hutchinson looked. He was very slippery. His hands were fast. That's a guy that Josh Buatsi beat, even if it was a close fight. That's a level he's gotten to. We know he's of a certain level. And so for me, just to see him not like Mankey Crazy said, other than the inside game, but I didn't see the inside game on this fight. I didn't see him able to make anything happen in a messy fight like this and get beat to the punch every time on the outside, basically.
I mean, look, to his credit, though, I will say this. He was fighting a guy with a style that, again, was hard to look good or great against. That being said, he didn't do anything really, I thought, to neutralize the awkwardness that he was in there with. You know what I mean? Like, figure it out, bro. Like, it's he was literally doing the same thing over and over and over again every round and getting beat to the punch. It's like, hey, look, at some point, the reason why the greats are the greats is because they're able to figure some shit out. If some shit doesn't, the shit they're doing in the first, second, or third round isn't working, they're able to make adjustments, right? If a guy is getting something off, they figure out a way to neutralize it. And he didn't. And maybe that is Virgil Hunter and his training in his corner not doing a good job preparing him. That's why we always talk about, hey, it's just as important as having a great trainer as it is having great talent, because a lot of the times the trainers know how and where to use the talent that you have to get you those wins, and they know when you should turn it on and when you shouldn't. A lot of these guys just are, again, I hate to say uncomfortable, but it looks like they've gotten comfortable in their style and refuse to do anything else. So look, I don't know what's going on in their camp. Maybe some changes do need to be made. But at the end of the day, I do know one thing: he can't keep fighting this way if he's going to have a shot at getting another title anytime soon.
Well, another title. I mean, Nibs, are you interested in watching either of those guys fight anytime soon? Like,
No.
after when you have a fight like that, it stops becoming about when you're going to get back to a title. It's like, does anybody care anymore? And I hate to put
you
it
know
in
what?
those
I would
terms.
want to see Parker fight again just because I think he got jobbed. So I'd like to see, what he does with his next opportunity.
Let's flip to that side of the coin for a second. By the way, and fact check saying he's not only training with Verge, that's the problem. Verge has another guy training him, but respectfully, it's not working. Appreciate that input. Fact check. I'm not aware of anyone else on his team, but that's always good information to have. Mankey says Buatsi seeks the perfect punch. He definitely does some of that, right? He's definitely loading up. He's definitely trying to find the perfect punch. But again, we've seen him keep a high work rate. We've already seen him do this in multiple fights. So, it's tricky, man. We got another one from Fact Check. Been in the gym with them. He literally fights how he spars, and there's no adjustments in sparring. Just a lot of guys in the gym happy to be in the position they are, but it isn't conducive to him. Well, we appreciate that inside scoop, and that speaks exactly to what you were saying, Nibs, about being comfortable.
Right. And again, that goes back to right. You Nibs, you can't want to see Parker at
You don't want to
175
see
against
Parker at
Michael Jordan.
175. That's what he's saying.
But here's the thing: if he's fighting at no matter what level he's fighting on, I think he got jobbed, right? So I'd like to see what he does next. I want to see what comes next, what they do with this, and where he goes. I always like to see what happens when a guy gets jobbed and what they do next. I'd be interested in watching that. The thing with Buatsi is if fact check is correct, then bro, you again, and this is for all you the young guys out there who are thinking about getting into the sport. Don't have people in your corner that are yes men. Don't have people in your corner that are there to make it easy for you. Training is supposed to be harder than the fight. You know what I'm saying? You go to any other sport, the workouts are harder than the games. You know what I mean? Like you Michael Jordan doesn't become Michael Jordan if things are going easy in practice, right?
Which, by the way, I
it's
don't get the sense that Buatsi is not in shape or not in condition. But what we're talking about is getting your boxing mind right and getting your
exactly
skill set right in that preparation. That's the part. It's supposed to push you mentally, physically, but it's also supposed to challenge you mentally. It's supposed to make you grow your IQ.
I don't know if you remember, was it like a year or two ago? There was the viral video that went out of Rolly Romero getting knocked out in training, right? And everybody's like, "Oh wow, see what happens," and he comes out and he wins his next fight, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
look, guys, that's what you're supposed to do in training. You're supposed
And
to
listen, that's
learn from
it.
that
Really,
shit,
that really what the caption should have been was that's what happens when these kids bring their phone to the gym. Because that you're
right?
not that was the culture was always you don't film this unless there's an agreement of some kind. Like and shit happens in the gym. You're supposed to be there learning. So if a kid gets clipped and somebody gets a video of it, like, do you even really know what you're watching? He might not have been
Right.
throwing punches that round. You know what I mean?
He might not have been working on the thing that would have protected him from getting stopped, or maybe he was working on something or trying to throw something he'd been working on and got caught. Like it's training, bro. So that's what the problem is you have to be able to work on this shit in training. And if you're not, and it's just hey the same old shit that you're good at, then what's the point?
Our guy Fact Check giving us more. I'm absolutely correct. Fact check me. The other trainer is named Jeff. Not saying he's not a good coach, but the thing is, there's less Verge around, and Jeff doing a lot of the work because Verge can't. I mean, we got the best chat in boxing, Nibs. We get the real
Look, bro,
insiders here today.
and that's why we love the guys that jump into our chats because we can do these interactions, and now I know a lot of guys won't, but the fact that, and this doesn't surprise me, right? Like we see all these trainers that've got multiple guys. Probably most of them have other people really running their camps. You know what I mean? But usually those trainers have vetted who it is they're going to have running those camps
Yep.
because it's still their name, that's going to be on the ledger when that guy loses. You know
Yep.
what I mean? I can guarantee you Freddie Roach isn't personally handling everybody that comes through the wild card, but I bet you what he knows who the fuck he is.
Well, and then they
And he's
they made it very clear, like Terrence has multiple trainers, but he had
Mhm.
Freddie always had Boo Boy Fernandez. He had of course, now I'm gonna forget his name as well, but there was another trainer at his gym that I covered at one point, tremendous trainer. But he could do that because these were other guys that were certified. You know what I mean?
Right.
They came from the Freddie Roach school, so that there was a certain amount of accreditation to them. Been around so much. been around much, so once it comes to fight night, it's hard to get him to do something on fight night if you're not there most of the times in training. Well, of course, you got to have that in-gym relationship, that in-gym rapport. You know, the best example of it from my own personal experience is Shadeja and Barry Porter. You know, when Barry's talking, they're locked the fuck in, man, and it's because he's there every day. And I think that that's a big piece of that, is having somebody that you know is there, that you know has your back. W chat today, fact check. Yeah, seriously, we got a good chat going today. Let's flip to the other side for Zach Parker. You know, to me, he obviously won the fight, but there were some similarities at times with actually with Shadeja's fight with Franchon, where I felt like, you know, Shadeja got the cleaner shots in, but at the end of the day, but it was the opposite, where I felt like Parker was smothering a lot of his own work. It felt like he was getting his shots off and then almost reaching in. Buatsi was pushing him down, but it also didn't look like he was really fighting it. It looked like he was kind of just taking the push and going down. And so while it felt like he had some of the only offensive success of the fight, um, it felt like he could have done a lot more. It felt like he could have kept the fight on the end of his jab, that he could have been more physical and aggressive on the inside, and that mentally there's something not quite there. We saw it in the John Ryder fight. We've seen it a couple times in other fights that he's won, where the talent and like there's a bunch of pieces that look like we're supposed to have a great fighter, kind of like Josh Kelly, and then it doesn't quite come together, and I'm not sure why. I know he's had a lot of injuries too.
You know what and I agree with everything you said. I also would like to add that I think there were times where he got too cute. You know, he was taking pictures. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And because he thought he had it, he was thinking the same thing we thought. I'm winning this by a mile. I don't need to do X, Y, or Z or whatever, right? Look, man, yo, look, this is fumbling at the 1 yard line, guys. You know what I mean? Don't do all the work for 99 yards and then drop the ball when it counts the most. Get in here, do your work the whole time. Make that guy look bad the entire time, you know, between the bills. Because if you start to get cute and take pictures, a, a lot of refs don't like that shit.
And let's even just look at it from a judging perspective. Even if you are landing the only clean punches of the fight, if every time you guys get close, Buatsi's able to push you down to the canvas, a judge is supposed to know better. But as the fighter, you have to do everything as that you can to put yourself in position to win. And going to the canvas every time they get into a clinch and looking like you don't want to engage is not always the best way to get the favor of the judges.
Yeah, I mean, you look, every aspect of the fight while you're in that ring is got to be a strategy, right? The clinch work has got to be a strategy. The things you're doing, you know, when neither one of you are throwing punches, your demeanor, all that shit has got to be a strategy because guess what? They're looking at all of it, bro. Like, you know, and you also need to know. I know there are a lot of guys who don't worry about judges, but there are boxers who will tell you they look up to judges. Hey, who's judging my fight? Right? And they make
As you
adjustments
should.
to their fighting style based on who's going to be watching. Because again, it's like, hey, I might win this fight 12 rounds to nothing, but I'll get these judges in here who, you know, don't like that kind of style of fight. So I got to do things a little bit different, right? Or I have to be more dominant in this area, or like you said, you know, be a little bit rougher in the clinches. Whatever it is you're doing, you've got to understand the whole fight of it, not just
Use
the
your
other guy
fucking
in
range.
the ring.
Use your range, bro. I was just dying to
Yeah.
see him use it for a whole round. And then Buatsi, I was just like, how does a guy of this pedigree, he can't find the distance on his jab, he can't get to the inside without accepting the hold. It was just really it was a frustrating fight because you know that this is like two top 12 guys, and they're like putzing
You,
around for 10 rounds.
you should have heard me. I'm yelling at the screen the whole time, bro. Throw the fucking jab. throw more jabs. I'm trying to like do something. You know what I mean? And I don't know what the game plan was, but I'm willing to bet money on it that Buatsi completely ignored whatever it was fight night, bro.
I think
Because it
Buatsi
just
was
didn't look very
lost.
good.
Yeah, I think Buatsi was lost, and I think that Parker was trying to do a jab and grab thing and just kind of win a stinker. And maybe because of some of the mental stuff that we're talking about, it wasn't as assertive as he thought it was. Maybe.
I would like to have, we've talked about this before. I would like to have conversations with the judges that judge this fight, right? Because I would like for them to take me through
Which
what
six
it
rounds did Buatsi get? Because Nibs and I can't find three.
right. And I get that there might be a judge, that, and it happens every fight that has a scorecard completely different than the other two because of the advantage point of where they're sitting, right? And we all understand that. You watch the sport long enough, you get it. But to have all three of the judges have the fight, one, close as shit, and then two, you know, two of them having him winning the fight, I'm like, can you take me through what exactly it is that you saw? Because, from my vantage point, and this is almost
Carl
to a
Frampton
point
had
where,
it 9-1 on the telecast. Carl Frampton
bro,
had it 9-1.
I would almost like to have the judges be able to watch the television broadcast of the fight, right? I would like it to get them from ringside and have them in a telecast version where they can watch, you know, the every angle, bro, because it seems like whatever angle they're fucking watching it from, I don't know.
I
Maybe
would
there
love
was
to
some
ask
fat guy
them
sitting on the front.
what was Bawatsi's most effective punch for the fight, because I don't
Right.
remember him landing really much of anything. But
Look,
clearly, you
bro.
saw 6 rounds for him. So, what was kind of the signature punch of the night? I'd love to know their answer on that.
That, and I'd like to be able to then go back and forth with him about their response because I think any response they give would be complete bullshit. Um, again, and this again, guys, I'm a fan of Buatsi. I wanted him to win this fight. I
He
expected him to
might have
win
been
the
in the
fight.
fight of the year this year
Yeah, and
with
he
Callum
didn't.
Smith.
Yeah, this was not his best work. So again, I will say this, man. We're tearing the guy apart. I hope that they learn from this. I hope that they don't, you know, get to celebrating this one too much, and they go back to the drawing board and say, "Hey, we got some shit to work out because we got one. We got we got a lucky one. Let's not do that again."
What did you think of Lanier Parrow's decision win over Jordan Thompson this weekend? Thompson, it was his first fight up at heavyweight, but clearly had a heavyweight build, standing 6'6", definitely filled out well at 240 pounds or so. Parrow, very patient, very accurate. At times doesn't have great output, but makes the most of what he does. But what are your takes on Parrow as a new Cuban heavyweight contender?
Look, I don't think anybody will look at Perro and be super impressed with his physique, obviously, but if you watch him fight, it's about as impressive as it gets. It's very Cuban, you know. Um, he doesn't have a lot of power, but he times his punches damn near perfectly, right? Like his counter punching is a thing of legend so far. And I think he had a guy in front of him who just wasn't on his level. Like when you look at Thompson, my God, he's got all the measurables you want for a heavyweight, right? And I was sitting up here, bro. If this dude found his range and his jab, right, and was able to throw off of that, he'd be a problem. But I think again, he's one of those guys we talk about it, right? We got all these guys at cruiserweight who think they can come up to heavyweight. I think he needed more time. He's a guy who needed more time before he decided to come up. And then, he's probably looking at Perro's, measurables and going, "Oh, well, I can walk through this guy," and that wasn't the case. Um, I think you run into a lot of problems when you fight these Cuban guys. Their defense is impeccable, and their counterpunching is legendary. So and it doesn't matter what weight class they're in. And he fucked around and found out. You come up to the heavyweights, bro. You can't get cute. There were a lot of times where he was trying to do this cutesy, defense shit, and it's like, nah, bro, that doesn't work up here. You gotta put in work, and you need to throw punches that will get your opponent's respect. And he wasn't really landing enough of those, for me. And I think it was, hats off to Perro and his team. They did a great job, man. I'm excited to see what happens next.
I like Perro a lot. I agree with everything you just said, but I have a couple of concerns with him as he moves up in competition. Right? He's super accurate. He's got good defensive instincts. He's really smart. And I think that he hits hard enough with the accuracy that I don't think guys are just going to rush him. So there's a lot of things to like with Perro. But defensively, the one thing that I get a little worried about is sometimes I think he's too comfortable just taking it off the high guard. And when you get up, this is this guy's first time at heavyweight. He's going to fight a career heavyweight at some point that's that size, that knows how to sit down on their shots a little more. And I wouldn't want to be just in the pocket, high guard, taking it on the guard for 12 rounds against, Tyson Fury, or against, Agit Kabayel, or against some of the other, stronger, more elite type guys in the division. But the fact that we're even talking about those fights, 13 fights in, I think says a lot about him. And my other little thing would be his work rate. I think sometimes because he's so comfortable taking it off the high guard and he's not always catching and shooting, there's lapses in the activity. So I think somebody who knows how to stay busy and knows how to keep his hands in his pocket, there's going to be, I think, a style that is a problem for him.
I'd like to see him and Richard Torres go at it, bro. And,
It's
and
great
the,
fighting.
the whole time I was watching that, I said I'd like to see him fight Richard Torres. And I don't think it'll happen, but the reason I said is because Richard Torres is going to give him everything he wants, as far as throwing punches. But would Richard be able to handle the defensive side and what comes back? You know what I mean? Because this guy, he has a chin. Because look, Thompson got some shit off on him. It wasn't like
Yep.
he came through completely clean. And I mean, he got some punches on him. I was like, damn, and he just walks through the shit. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on in Cuba, but apparently they put granite in all their guys' chins. Those guys can walk through walls just like a lot of these Mexican fighters. And he's just built differently. So I think that part of it is what we saw is he knew who he had with him, right? He knew, hey, I can take this guy's shit, and I don't really have to worry about it. I think because one thing we've learned, or with most Cuban fighters, is they know who the fuck they're in with. They know who not to take punches from, right? So I think that would be something they would clean up, or you would hope so. Once they
Just
move up in
one quick comparison I would give with that is, I think in retrospect, there were some fights leading up to the first Espinoza fight where Robesi got too comfortable just taking it off the high guard in the pocket without firing back, without head upper body movement. And I think that that's caught up to him when he got in with a guy that could really punch.
I think Robesi is a guy who got drunk on his own talents, right? Like he thought his natural talent could save him every time. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe with some of these guys in the low, the contender era, and that B side, but when you start to go up and you're fighting these championship level fights, nah, bro, it's not gonna work every time, especially when you're going in there against guys who want to take your head off, and you have to respect the guy on the other end of that ring every time. And with his last fight, everybody knows how I feel about him. So I'll say that Perro, I think he's definitely gonna have the goods to make a go at heavyweight. Yeah, I'd like to see him tighten a few things up here and there, but bro, at 13 fights into his career, hey man, this is looking big time.
The other thing I really like about him is he's low effort. Like you can see, because he's so natural, that for him to throw like a slick little combination, it just took so much less effort for him than for Thompson. And to me, that's a part of conditioning, getting your mind conditioned to be that calm and to be that poised and to put, I'm going to deliver it right, but I'm not going to put anything extra. I don't have any anxious energy. There's no nervous movement. Those are the things that pay off down the road,
And that body work. Can we talk about that for a second, bro? Those early rounds and that body work was vicious.
Yep.
And you could tell after that fourth round, Thompson was not liking that shit at all.
He was not, and Perro, I think at the end of the day, is a part of a batch of young heavyweights right now. Even though he's 32, young in terms of his pro career, and certainly not old as a professional either. But him, Richard Torres, Moses Atauma, there's a group of guys right now that I think are starting to kind of build up the next generation a little more.
You bring up all those guys, and it brings a flutter to my heart. As one of the older heads in the game now, which is crazy that I have to say that about myself these days. But you think about that, and it's like that's that's what you want out of this sport. You want those kind of guys coming up, but you also want those guys willing to fight each other. And if anything, the last couple of years have taught us is that they do. We're going to start to get, some of these, young pups fighting each other and thinning out the field pretty quickly. Um, you know, and I think when it comes to Pero, I think he's coming in to the heavyweight division at the right. We always say this. Timing can be one of the best things that happen to you in your career. It can also be one of the worst. You know what I mean? But I think timing wise, this is the best time in the world to catch fire as a heavyweight. You know what I'm saying? Look at Worldly. None of, and we all have to admit, none of us were taking him against Parker. And here he come. He's chugging along. Hey, it's like holy shit. Who's this guy out of nowhere, right?
And then don't forget the two guys that Wardley kind of made his name against, in Justice Hooney and Frazier Clark. I think both tremendous young talents that will have another chapter. Bro, Richard Torres calling out Moses Atauma this week. You gotta respect that he would at least desire to have that fight. I think it's great.
Yeah, I don't know if Richard really wants that smoke, but you know
I
what?
think he
Hats off
does
to the
want
young
it
man.
though. I think he does want it. I think
Yeah,
he
I mean, hats
knows
off to
that.
the young man for calling him out, and that's what you want in this sport, right? You want guys to put their balls on the line. You guys, hey, come on, I'll fight
Listen,
you.
Moses is a 20-year-old phenom, but he also has yet to be in with another young prime heavyweight. And I think a lot of questions could get answered by Richard Torres in that fight.
Yo, look, I'll be the first one to say, and it's easy to say this after, but I thought before it too. When Jared Anderson was fighting Bacoli, I was like, what the fuck is he doing? That makes no sense considering where he was. But you know what? I'll take my hat off to the young man for being willing to take it. Like, hey, look, yeah, let's go, right? That's what you want in this sport. Whether they're going to win, lose, or draw, you want these young pups to come up and actually finally take the test, right? And some pass, some fail, but you want them to be able to do it. You know what I mean? Hey, look, take the tests. A lot of these guys aren't even willing to do that part. So the fact that you got these guys calling out these names, hey man, I'm here for it, bro. Sign me up.
Hey, listen, Richard and Guido did it, and hopefully, yeah, and Guido and Fa Jogba did it. There's guys that are doing it, and hopefully that continues. Nibs, while we got a little more time left on this show, what are your thoughts on next week's headlining fight between Virgil Ortiz and Erickson Lubin?
Great fight. On paper, great fight. I think Virgil Ortiz, I think, a lot of people think the world of him. I think he could be the next guy to start taking over a division. You know, when you just look at the talent and who he's fighting, he's not just a guy that, we hear about. Oh, well, he's great. He can do this, that, and the third, but he's proving it in the ring against high level opposition. Enter Erickson Lubin, who I think in his entire career has had one fight that everybody was like, oh shit, that's kind of boring. But for your entire career so far to only have one of those, Come on, bro. Erickson Lubin is usually in entertaining fights, win, lose, or draw. He's been in fight of the year type fights, several times throughout his career. Um, and let's not forget, even though I have Virgil Ortiz winning this fight, there's a chance Erickson Lubin knocks him out cold because Erickson
That's
Lubin
why
does have
that's why I'm really not trying to hear anybody talk about Boots Ennis this week, because this is way too
right.
live of a fight to be talking about what's next for either guy. I think some of what gets overlooked with Lubin is he's taken some punishment for sure, and I don't think many people, including me, thought that he beat Jesus. But if you watch that Jesus Ramos fight, man, that's about as good as anyone's done against Jesus up to this point. He had a lot of success boxing from the outside. And if that guy shows up against Virgil, he's a live dog. It does against anybody. So to me, having seen Lubin now consistently take on top level opposition, just like Virgil's been consistently taking top level opposition. This is what we like to see. We like to see the best fighting the best consistently. And the way Lubin has responded from defeat in his career, you have to believe that he's a live dog in this fight.
Look, I don't think Lubin's going to lose much when either way, right? Because you watch Lubin fights because it's a Lubin fight, right? Because he's got dynamite literally in both of his hands. He's one of those rare guys that can knock you out, with a jab. You know what I'm saying? But he catch you with that overhand right at the right time. You'll be picking up your mouthpiece and they'll be telling you what your name is in the dressing room. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is why we watch the Erickson Lubin fights. This is why we watch him have these wars like he did with Fundora. You know what I mean? And I mean that was one of the most fun fights I've ever watched. Period. And if it weren't for the extra head he had on his head, he might have fucked around and won that fight. So
and that fight took a lot out of Fundora too.
Right. And the thing is the thing that Virgil Ortiz can't do is he can't get lured into the machismo thing and try to do a slugfest with Lubin, because even though he might be able to win that, right? That's a very dangerous thing to do with a guy like Erickson Lubin. So I can't wait to see it though. I think it's going to be no matter who wins, this is going to be an entertaining fight.
I might say, I personally might see it the other way around, where I think that Virgil's one of the most vicious punchers in boxing right now, and I think if Lubin decided to try to get in the pocket with Virgil, with the fact that he has been stopped before, I think that Virgil would win an inside fight, but it would also become a fight where anyone could get knocked out at any minute. Part of what I thought was so impressive about Virgil's last fight with Madrimov was how he took his time. He didn't rush in. He spent 4 or 5 rounds kind of building on something. And then in that second half, took over the fight and separated himself against an elite guy, which frankly is what I expect him to do here, man. I personally think Virgil is the guy at 154. I think he could be a part of a reinvigorating of the middleweight division with a multi-fight series with Jesus Ramos. And I think that Virgil Ortiz is going to be a pound-for-pound staple for years to come. As much as I like Lubin and I just gave him his props, and I don't think he should be overlooked, I think Virgil's special, man. I really do.
I mean, like I just said, I mean, there are a lot of people, myself included, who thinks that guy can be next. He can be the next guy to be running away with the middleweight division, whether it's at 154, moving up to 160. I know a lot of people. Like you said, we don't want to get into the Boots conversation on this channel, but I know everybody. That's what everybody wants to see, right? Because
and should he win, we'll be talking about it next week. Best believe, should he win, we'll be there.
But to quote Birdman, put some respect on the name of Erickson Lubin, bro. And the reason I said if I were Virgil Ortiz, I wouldn't get into I'm not saying you can't throw your shit, but I wouldn't get into a slugfest with a guy who's got power in both hands, right? Because like I said, he can catch you with
exchanges, right.
Right. He can catch you with some sneaky shit that isn't even a power punch, and the next thing you know, you're off, and that gives him a window. Whereas, if you're fighting a guy who's got one power punch, right? He's only got an overhand right. He's only got a right hand or he's only got a left hand. You can watch out for that one hand. But with a guy who can literally put people to sleep with both hands, I that wouldn't be the part of the strategy for me. Um, but again, because Lubin has proven to not have the best of chins, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe that's what they want to do, and you just think you're just way better than him, which I do think. But again, that wouldn't be part of my strategy. I think and I don't think it's going to be part of Virgil's. I think he's going to get in there and do some work, and it'll be entertaining as shit. I expect him to be able to get a stoppage late in the fight.
Virgil's become a guy. He gives you a thoughtful ass whooping.
Yeah,
It's like Terrence. It's slow. It kind of builds. Lomachenko had that. Usyk had that. He's not in a rush to whoop on you, and before you know it, the water is boiling, and you're cooking alive. And he does a beautiful job at that, man. There's not a lot of guys that it sneaks up. The whooping kind of sneaks up on you with Virgil. You know what I mean?
there's going to be a lot of water in the basement, bro. Look,
Yeah.
and before you, like you said, before you know it, you're fucking around, you're dancing in your living room, and your feet are wet, and and then it's over. You know what I mean? And before you get a chance to respond to the emergency in your basement, you know what I
Right.
mean? It's over. So I think that he puts on a master class, as you said before. Um, I do think this is for all the reasons I just previously stated. I still think it's a dangerous fight, though. Erickson Lubin,
Very.
you know, is not to be overlooked. You know what I mean? And I get he's not a Boots, he's not even a Virgil, but at the same time, he's not a guy you overlook. I don't care who you are.
Well, and a big shout out to both Virgil Ortiz and Erickson Lubin for being the kind of fighters that we appreciate at this show, who want to take the best competition and want to take the risks. And that's ultimately what gives the fans the best sport possible. Nibs, hell of a show this week, my friend, as is tradition. Tell the people how important it is to support local boxing.
Look, we touched on this last week, because it is important to understand that local boxing is so much more than just going to local events, seeing you guy that you might know or that you've heard about, on the news or where, through just local chit chat and seeing that one person. There are moms and dads and aunts and uncles who make their living off of working at these events, right? They work the local events, the sporting events, the high school football games, the baseball games for AAA teams. These local boxing cards put food on their tables. And then there are also the guys that are covering the sport at either a local or regional level, such as yourself, who do God's work when it comes to the amount of content that they're putting out and the quality of content that they're putting out, most of the time out on their own dime, right? Unless you get one of these bigger networks that can fund you. And people have to understand that not only are a lot of these boxers out here working 9 to 5s to support their dream, so are the guys who are commentating about it. So are the guys who are bringing you the content that you might not even be able to realize where to get it from. The guys telling you about the pro cards on the internet and the YouTubes and where to find these local guys and guys to look at that aren't just the bigger names. You got to support them too, man. So when you support local boxing, you are supporting yourself. I know I've said it many a time on this channel, but you literally are supporting yourself. You're supporting the people within your community. And I guarantee you, when you get that guy or that woman from your community that pops, you have the pride in that alone is immeasurable, man. Support local boxing. Fuck with us or fuck off, man.
Beautifully said, my brother. We will catch you guys next week. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Our third co-host. You guys are the best. And we will be back next week.